Hello everyone, Reza here. In this video, I will show you how to create an approval request directly from PowerApps. The user will be able to select the approvers from within the Power App that will begin a sequential approval process. And as the approvers respond, the entire approval details will be showcased directly in the Power App. So let's check it out in action. To request an approval process from a Power App, in my scenario, the data source is a simple events information list in SharePoint. For the approval process, I need a certain set of columns. I'll add a column of type choice. I'll call it status. I've gone ahead and plugged in 3 options. Pending approval. This will be the default status the moment an item is created in this list. And then based upon the final approval decision, the status would either be approved or rejected. Next, I'll add a person type column. I'll name it approvers. Go to more options and allow multiple selections. Then I'll add another person type column called assigned to. Next, I'll add a multi-lines of text column, call it approval history. And finally, a column of type number. I'll call it decisions taken. And the default value for this, I will set it as 0. That completes the columns that I need to manage the approval request process. In my Power App, I have the SharePoint list connected, and on my home screen, I'm leveraging the modern table control to show the items from my events info list. This can also be a gallery control. Now, to create a screen that allows the user to enter information into my events info list as well as track the approval request information, I'll head over to new screen, and one of the new modern screen templates is called approval request. I'll go ahead and select this. In this template, we have a form control. I'll go ahead and connect this to the SharePoint list. To connect the home screen with the form screen, in the home screen, I have a button called Add Event. On select of this button, I will first reset the form called Approval Form 1 in my case, which is in the form screen, and then navigate the user to my form screen. The table control has a property called onSelect. I will set a variable called varItem, and its value will be my table controls name dot selected. Then I will use the view form function, my form called approval form 1, and then I will navigate the user to my form screen. Click add event, takes me to my form screen. To allow the user to go back to my home screen, in the header control, there is an option to place an image in the logo property. I already have an image uploaded in my app called back. And there is also an onSelect logo property. Here I will use the function back. So I can click on this to take me back to the home screen. If I click add event, I have the ability to add a new item in my events info list. And I can do that by clicking on this button called submit request, which is a part of the template. So it submits the form, and the form control has an on success property. So when the event is successfully submitted, in that case, I would like to navigate the user to my home screen. Approvers is my person type column, multi-select. And we can see that the modern combo box control does not work well with person type columns. So we will make a slight adjustment here. Temporarily, I'll go and insert a new screen, blank one. And in here, I will insert the classic edit form control, connect it to my SharePoint list. This form will leverage all the classic controls. Here is the approvers data card. And here is the classic combo box control. Right click, copy, go to the approval request screen, select the approvers data card, advanced, unlock, select the modern combo box, delete, right click, paste. Here comes the classic combo box control. I'll go and copy the name of this combo box. And the two errors that are occurring here, all I have to do is use the reference of the classic control that I just pasted here. So I'll just replace the names and I'll do the same for the other properties. Since this is the classic combo box control, if I head over to properties and fields, primary text, I can show display name, search text, I'll also use display name, click preview, and now I can use this to search for users in my Active Directory. Here, the user is selecting the approvers, and we can make this data card a required field by simply setting the required property to true. Assign to, when the user creates a new item, this should hold the value of the first approver that is entered in this multi-select person type column. So for the assign to data card, I'll first go and unlock. And for its default property, I will use the formula. If the approval form.mode is form mode.new, then go and get the first value from my classic combo box control that I added here. Else, you keep the value as is. Now this is a modern combo box control. If I head over to properties and fields, I'll go and add a field here to show the display name. If I preview, notice it picked Reza because Reza is the first approver here. Let's remove Reza. Now there's Sarah. And this data card for assign to has a property called display mode. I will change this to display mode.disabled as I do not want the user to make any changes to this. The sidebar container, we have this gallery control that represents a status indicator like experience for your approval process. This entire sidebar container should only be visible if the form control is not in new mode. So to this existing formula, I will append an OR condition. Approval form.mode is equal to form mode.new. The sidebar container is not visible because currently the form is in new mode. The user can fill out the form, select the approvers, submit the request. And at this point, I want to start an approval process. We will leverage Power Automate. I'll create a flow that's of type automated cloud flow, where the flow will trigger when an item is created or modified in SharePoint. I'll give my flow a name and click create. For the trigger, I'll pick my SharePoint site and pick my SharePoint list. Next, I'll add an action, pick the approvals connector and select start and wait for an approval. Approval type, I will pick first to respond. The title of the approval, I'll say event approval for the title that the user entered. Assign to. This, I can directly leverage the assigned to person type column that has the information of the first approver. I'll pick the dynamic content assigned to email. Now, once the approval decision is taken, I'll add an action, compose action, and here I'll use an expression. I'll use the function add, go to dynamic content and select the column value for decisions taken. And to this, I'll add 1. I'll click add, rename to decisions taken. Then I will add an action, which will be a condition to check to see if the outcome of the approval is this equal to approve. If yes, I will add an action to update the item in my SharePoint list. Once again, I'll pick my SharePoint site and my SharePoint list. ID, the dynamic content ID of my trigger action. Advanced parameters, I'll click show all. So this will list out all the columns. Status value. This I will want to set conditionally depending upon whether this is the last approver in the approval chain. To do that, I will enter custom value and write an expression if equals the length of approvers dynamic content. This is my multi-select person type column. Length will give me the number of approvers that the user had selected. If this equals the outputs dynamic content of decisions taken, that means this is the last approver in the thread. In that case, I will set the status to approved, else I will keep the status as pending approval. These have to exactly match the status column values we placed in our choice column. I'll click add. Assigned to claims. Here, we'll need to put in the value of the next approver in the chain. Enter custom value expression if equals length approvers. If this matches decisions taken, meaning this is the last approver in the chain, in that case, I need to set the value of this person type column to null. Unfortunately, we can't do that here. We'll need an extra step for that. So for now, I will keep the value as the same value of assigned to by picking assigned to claims. Else, meaning there are more approvers. So I need to go and pick the next approver. For that, I'll go and pick dynamic content approvers, which is my multi-select choice column. From here, I need to pick the next approver. So I need to give its index, question mark, under square brackets. I'll simply put the outputs of decision taken, as that has the running number. And from here, go and pick the claims token. So this will dynamically assign the next approver. I'll click add. Decisions taken. This is straightforward. I'll pick the outputs of decision taken. approval history, first I'll add the existing approval history. I'll put a demarcation. Approved by, I need the name of the approver who approved it. I'll use the following expression to get that value. For comments, once again, I'll use an expression to go and grab the value of the comments that the approver entered. So this goes ahead and updates the item. Now at this point, it's important to understand that my flow triggers when an item is created or modified, and in this flow itself, I am modifying the item, which will result in the flow triggering again, which I would like to do if the status of the approval continues to be pending approval. So for the trigger action, if I go to settings, I have an option here for trigger conditions. This is where I can add a condition to only trigger the flow when I need it. And I would like to trigger this flow only when the status column, which is the choice column, its value is pending approval. Now I updated the item, but one thing that did not get completed is for assigned to, if it is the last approver, assigned to should be empty, but I cannot do that in this step. There is a limitation in the update item action. So right after this, I'll add another action, which will be a condition. Condition will be equals length of approvers with the outputs of decisions taken. I'll add equal to expression true. This is a Boolean true. So this checks to see if this is the last approver in the chain. If yes, I need to set assign to empty. And for that, I will add an action, use the send an HTTP request to SharePoint action, connect to my SharePoint site. Method will be post. API web lists get by title. In single quotes, I need to put the name of my list exactly the way I have the name, /items. And here I need to get the specific item that I'm trying to update. So I'll simply pick ID. I'll pick it from the trigger. Show all in advanced parameters. Some setup needed here. Content type, accept, if match, and the type of the HTTP method, which is going to be merge. And in the body, I'll start with this format. Type is sp.data. The name of my list. If there is a space in the name of your list, you have to replace it with _x0020 _. And at the end, write list item, comma. The property that I want to update is my column called assigned to. If I simply sort on this column, in the URL, I can get the internal name of this column, assigned to. So here, I will place that name, ID, I caps, D lowercase, colon, under double quotes, the value -1. That's how I can set that person type column to empty. This completes my true branch if the approver says approved. If the approver says rejected, I have to do something very similar to what I did for the first step here, which is update item. So I'll simply copy it, go to the false branch and paste. Here, the details are going to be similar. The status value straightforward. I can directly pick rejected. Approval history. Instead of saying approved by, I'll change this to rejected by. Assign to claims. Here I don't need to set the next user. In fact, I don't need to set it at all. So I'll just delete this and X. I have to make it empty, and for that I have to use that same HTTP request action. And that action is right here. So once again, copy, paste, and this completes my workflow. I'll click save. My flow is saved, but I'm getting a warning that this flow may result in an infinite trigger loop, but I'm not worried about it because I have handled it thanks to trigger conditions. Flow is ready. My app allows the user to submit the data. So let's go ahead and create a new event. Approvers. I'll pick Sarah and Reza. I click submit. The data gets recorded in my data source. Here is that item. If I click on this, it takes me back to the request approval screen. Notice it did not show the data in the form. That's because the item property of the form, I simply need to set this to var item. That's the variable I set when I select an item in my table control. And if I preview, I can see all the details. Submit request button should only be visible when the user is submitting a new request. So the visible property of that button, I'll set it to approval form mode is form mode.new. Now the sidebar panel shows up, and here I would like to list my approval information. There is a gallery control. Its items property I will set as follows. All I'm doing here is go grab the approvers from my variable and go and add a step number to each approver. So if you look at the output of this action, it has the details of the approvers and it has the step number. Now there are a few errors here. The first text control, font weight, I'll just set this to regular. And the text I will set as this item dot display name. So that'll be the name of my approver. The second text control, font weight, I'll set to regular. And text will be this item dot department the approver belongs to. Then we have this badge control. I'll change its style to filled. Content, I'll set it to empty. Base palette color, I will set to the following formula. If the current email address of the user is this equal to the current approver who the task is assigned to, if yes, show it in a specific color. Then check to see if status is rejected, set the color. If no, then accordingly go and check to see how many decisions were taken and set the colors. So if I preview this right now, the task is assigned to Sarah, who's the first approver, and then it will go to Reza, who's the next approver. Now in this gallery, there is also a rectangle shape control. I'll go and set its width to 3. So it kind of shows this interconnection of the approval chain. And if you would like to put an image of the approver as well, select the gallery, click edit, and go and insert an image control. The image property should be this item.picture. I will go and place this right on top of this batch control. Sarah is the first approver. Sarah receives an email asking for an approval for the event that was submitted. Sarah can approve or reject directly from the email itself. Enters comments, submits her response. Action completed. In my Power App, if I refresh, I can see the status is still pending approval, but this time The approval task is assigned to Reza, who is the second approver in the process. Sarah approved, so this is green. Now it's pending Reza's approval. Here is the approval email that Reza has received. Reza also approves it, puts in his comments, submits his response. And now in the Power App, the status changes to approved, assigned to is empty. And if I explore the item, here is approval status indicator. Well, let's also show the approval history. In the sidebar container, I will go and insert information button, modern control. I'll move it up. The content property for this control, I'll leverage my variable dot approval history. Preview. If I click on this, there is the entire approval history. It's first approved by Sarah, these were the comments, and then approved by Reza, and these were the comments. I'll add a new event. Status column default. If the form is in new mode, put the value pending approval. Approvers, I'll pick 3 this time and submit. Company event pending approval, assigned to the first approver, Sarah. Sarah approves it, so it's green. Now the task is with James. We can see the approval history. James rejects it. I can clearly see the approval status. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for watching.